Professor Chen for including my paper in this great session. I've learned a lot. And actually, in the previous session, Professor Jin, who shared the same last name as me, pronounced differently, yeah, made a reference to a main dish in kind of depicting her paper. So mine is the last paper, so I should make it as a dessert, yeah, even though we have the interesting discussion at the end. So if you remember my dessert with 2 flavors, that would be great. So many of you, from my perspective, expressed optimism in international trade, though there are many reservations about how to make it work, especially in regional cooperation. And many of you from your country origins reflected as well, talked about North America and Europe, and mostly with China. So, but as many emphasized, the devil is in the details, and for the first flavor is that my paper is talking about, as you see, the Northeast Asia. And somebody said that it's kind of, we are sorry that there's nobody from Japan right now, so maybe that would be reflected in my talk as well. So the first flavor, I'll talk about Northeast Asia. And second one, I'll talk not directly on regional cooperation, but from a little bit different angle. The Professor Kwan mentioned about the global aging as one of the recent phenomenon, and also if you attended the plenary session yesterday, Professor Christopher Sarides made a reference to the aging issues, especially for China. And in one of the diagrams he showed yesterday morning, so China will become an older country than US in 2050. So it's now only a generation later, China will be older than the current United States, which is a pretty old country in terms of aging issues. So let me combine the 2 flavors. I hope I can succeed in telling you about how those 2 could be combined. So the first about Northeast Asia, this is the rise, I don't have to emphasize the rise of China to this group. So let me move a little fast on this side. So there is an increase of inter-regional trade shares in East Asia, but not as much as could be done, because there is a lot of benefits from connectivity, and of course One Belt, One Road, it's even bigger scale. And even within Northeast Asia, between China, Korea, Japan, there is a huge benefit, and there has been talk for a few decades about Northeast Asian trade. Though now, after One Belt, One Road, that's on the side. However, the reason why the 3 countries had not developed the big step towards economic integration was the details. And as they said, the devil is in details. So there are a lot of constraints and challenges. The first one is the economic political diversity, as we see from many different geopolitical issues, cultural issues, and others. And for Northeast Asia, there is strong influence of outside actors. United States these days, in the old days, Russia as well. And in each country, of the 3 countries, there's a rise and fall of nationalism and territorial disputes among those 3 countries. There's 3 countries, so there are 3 combinations of those 3 countries, and you can see some names. I wouldn't name the names because I'm thinking of which language should I say first. So I would not talk about that at all. So, and then also difficulty in building political consensus because of national sovereignty and supranational cooperation is another one. So, rather than going through the whole, there's a clear vision of strategy for the Asian cooperation. And one of the further difficulty is the asymmetry of economic power within Asia these days. And this one shows the total GDP and the per capita GDP. So that kind of mismatch. So I have difficulty in teaching Korean students on talking about what matters more, total GDP or per capita GDP. So the answer is always, in macro or economics, it depends, because we have two hands. And then the China example is a perfect example in that case. Territorial conflicts, this is not only 3 countries, but also with Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, every other country. So rather than going through that, so the way we move forward, I'm talking about, that's my second flavor. Let's kind of attack this from a little bit slightly sideways or different angle. So let's build some institutions that may not itself directly integrate, but it will help as a kind of background, how to build institutions and how to build cooperation among different countries across the institutions. And that will help the market integration. And especially among the 3 countries, China, Japan, Korea, FTA, and we need to build a single market with freight trade, but from different angles. And then one of the things that would be probably most helpful, because as I said, because of the political conflicts, territorial conflicts, and nationalism, the trade talk has been stuck. So probably the best way is to approach this from some small goals, small steps that would be easier to tackle, and that is, I think, the aging issues. Japan has been the most famous about the aging society. So this is the median age. Basically, if you have every Japanese in 1950, somebody in the middle, how old is a person? That's like 23 in 1950, just after war. And in 1980, it's like 30. Right now, it's like 47, 48. And Korea is following Japan by 20-year lag in many ways, unfortunately, including the fast aging process. In some way, Korea is even faster, as you see at the last. China is not too far apart. So this is up to 2015. And if you project following United Nations forecast, they are converging, and the median age is above 50 by the year of 2050. That's the forecast Professor Pisarides was showing yesterday morning. And if it does not change the economic dynamics, that's not a problem. But as Professor Kwan said, that's one of the, I think, the most important source of the new order, new economy. So I have a short paper that's available in the Federal Reserve Board website, and how important demographic factors are. So if I convert all the equations to the level of GDP, so the peak, this is how much demography affects the per capita GDP. So if the peak is around, say, 1995, and right now we are about 10 or 15% below, just because of demography. So that's huge impact, and as we move on for Japan, they are cutting like 50% of the peak, which was like 15 years ago. And this is the US, so I'm skipping it. This is about Korea, and it's sometimes even more dramatic. The peak happens to be in 2010, which is the most recent data because of the developed UN data set. And Korea is going down to like 40%. And China, I didn't do it because my project was about the OECD countries, but it's not too different. So after learning what Japan had gone through, and if that's a big source of the last decade or last 2 decades, maybe third decades coming in, I think that's the area the policy cooperation could be done through. And doing one of those one at a time would be the way to, I think, to materialize the optimism many of you shared, maybe as a believer of the human's rationality. Thank you.